All right. Meanwhile, Senator Marco Rubio of the great state of Florida has got a brand new book out. It's called American Dreams. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, the news of the day. It has been revealed, Senator, that the reason the President of the United States did not go to that unity rally over the weekend in France is because, according to Politico, the White House staff didn't realize it was going to be that big, and nobody asked him.
Well, look, I think there was a mistake. If he couldn't have gone, because I'll give him the benefit of the doubt about when the president travels, it takes this enormous platform of security and communications. They could have done a number of things. They could have sent John Kerry, of course. Eric Holder was in Paris.
He was already there.
He was already there.
He's not
the other thing they could have done is, they could have sent Bill Clinton and George W. Bush.
Sure.
Any of these sorts of things they could have done to send someone. They didn't send anyone, and I thought it was a real mistake. And the White House acknowledged
they
that
did
yesterday.
it, and I think it's important. If you make a mistake, at least admit it. I thought it was going to be a verbal bloodbath yesterday, but he kind of diffused it to a degree. But not saying what the president actually did instead of going is kind of odd. I have no idea what the president was doing.
Do you believe that the president really didn't know that this was happening?
Well, I'm sure they knew that it was happening. Their claim is they didn't know it would be this big. Obviously, somehow the other leaders of these countries figured out it was going to be pretty big. And that's what you have an embassy there for, by the way. They should be in touch with what's happening in the country.
Absolutely. We're going to play a bit of sound from Josh Earnest yesterday at the White House where they were trying to explain it all. Security, we probably should have sent a higher, more iconic American. Here's Mr. Earnest.
Well, the fact is that this is obviously a march that the planning for which only began on Friday night, and 36 hours later it had begun. What's also clear is that the security requirements around a presidential level visit or even a vice presidential level visit are onerous and significant. And in a situation like this, they typically have a pretty significant impact on the other citizens who are trying to participate in a large public event like this.
They were still kind of spinning the security angle.
Seems a bit disingenuous, though. Look, there were thousands that marched and stood with posters there in the city of Paris, right? There was nothing small about the deaths that occurred last week in Paris. To say that we didn't think it was that big of a deal.
Yeah, again, the bottom line is that that's why you have an embassy. They're supposed to be in touch with what's happening in the country. Yeah. And they're the ones that should have figured out this was going on. And they certainly would have known that all these heads of state from different countries were going. That they would have known for sure. There's no way they couldn't have known that.
Let's just move on. We understand they made a mistake. The embassy, our ambassador there, totally unqualified. She's just a big donor. Maybe that's part of it. Let's talk about Islamic extremism.
Yes.
Why is it the French, the British, they're all calling it that, but we don't? Does it bother you?
Well, we do. The president won't. And I don't understand. I really still do not understand why. And it's important to call. This is not an attack on Islam. It is an attack on Islamic extremism, which is a very serious problem. And
why do you have this summit in February if we're not going to label what it is?
Well, again, I hope the summit is about not just the threat that's posed by people in other countries, but increasingly the homegrown violent extremists who are motivated by jihadist websites or by traveling abroad and coming back home. That is the fastest growing, most dangerous new dynamic of the war on terror. Another thing they won't say, by the way, the war on terror.
Congratulations on this book. It's called American Dreams. Was going through it. For one thing, you're in fighting shape. You're on the cover. You look like you're ready to go.
Photoshop a little bit there.
Your format with the book is look at people, look at their circumstances, and talk about what their dreams are and how to get it back.
Yeah, look, it's very simple. I think that one of the things that made America a special country is that we were the one of few places on earth where no matter where you started out in life, if you were willing to work hard, you could achieve what we've come to call the American dream, which is happiness. And not for everyone does that mean being a millionaire, just happiness. Today there are millions of people that are starting to find out that doesn't work anymore. Sure. Because our economy has structurally been transformed and our policies have not changed with it.
I think you're creative here because you outline a success sequence. Can you tell everybody about that?
Well, for everyone, the success sequence may end up in a different place, but it's pretty simple, obviously. In the 21st century, first you have to have stable family life, and that's important. The breakdown of the American family is a major contributor to poverty and economic underperformance. The second is you have to have the skills for 21st century jobs. Today, more than ever, higher paying jobs require a higher level of training, education. It doesn't always mean a four-year degree. You can be a welder. You can be an electrician.
Absolutely.
But those are important. And then the third is you have to have a vibrant and growing economy that creates those jobs at a time when we have more global competition than we've ever had.
Specifically, the success sequence is what? What's the order?
The order, first and foremost, is the stable family life. You have to have a strong and stable family life. And if you don't have that...
Okay, there goes. If we can't check that box, what do we do?
Well, then certainly you have have to recognize, for example, the kids that are growing up in a broken home in a dangerous neighborhood in substandard housing are going to struggle to succeed unless we do something to help them break that cycle, whether it's school choice or helping their parents acquire education so they can get a better job. All the sorts of things that you need in order to stabilize their home life. The second is skills. In the 21st century, there will not be jobs that pay a livable wage if you don't have some advanced level of education, whether it's a 4-year degree, a graduate degree, or a technical career. You're going to need it.
I'm glad you mentioned the wage part, because one of the things, and you're talking about the whole thing could bring down poverty by 70%, but you would also like to see a wage subsidy. So
it's a wage enhancement. Well, we have an existing program called the Earned Income Tax Credit, which you apply for on your tax return by claiming you have X number of children, and there's a lot of fraud in that program. What I'm saying is let's transform that program instead into a wage enhancement. So rather than paying someone the equivalent of $7 an hour on welfare, we would rather you go work for $9 or $10 an hour and then make up the difference of $1 or $2 by delivering the same benefit, but instead of through your tax return, through your paycheck. Thereby you are rewarding work, incentivizing people to work, and not sit back and collect on the check.
What's the incentive for the employer then?
Well, first of all, these are going to be jobs that are not permanent. I mean, for example, you should not make it there's nothing wrong with being the cashier at Burger King, but you're not going to raise a family off that for 30 years. But there's no such thing as meaningless work either. Even working as a cashier at Burger King, you are acquiring discipline and skill that will serve you later as you acquire education.
Be great and maybe have another job until then, like your grandfather did, which you opened up.
But my point is, the incentive is you want to get people to work, but ultimately, that's not going to be, and I'm not sure you want an employee that wants to be there for the rest of their lives doing that.
So let's talk about 2016. Mitt Romney looks like he's in. Paul Ryan looks like he's out. Ted Cruz coming a little bit later. He's virtually in. When is Jeb Bush looks like he's virtually in. When is Marco Rubio making a decision?
Well, soon. I mean, the decision I have to make at this point is, where is the best place for me to achieve that agenda in our book? Is it in the U.S. Senate now that we're in the majority, or is it running for president? And that's a decision only I can make, obviously. It's one we'll think about very carefully over the next few weeks, and sooner rather than later. But I promise you that I'll let everyone know when I make that decision,
Has Jeb Bush moved up
you
your
guys.
schedule?
No, I don't know if it's moved up the schedule. Certainly, he's going to be a very credible candidate. You mean, you heard reports that he's going to raise $100 million in the first 3 months of the year. He's certainly capable of doing that, or more, really.
Right.
And so that's a lot of money. And I think he'll be a very strong and credible candidate. But if I decide that the best place for me to serve this country that has given us so much is by being its president, I'm going to run for that no matter who else is in the race.
You said this about Hillary Clinton. It's a name that often comes up when talking about 2016. The election of Hillary Clinton to the presidency, in short, would be nothing more than a third Obama term. Another Clinton presidency would be a death blow to the American dream.
Absolutely. And the reason why is because we face 21st century challenges, and her ideas are all ideas that from the 1990s and the early part of this century. And we need to realize that our struggles economically are not part of a cyclical downturn. It is an economic restructuring, and ideas from 20 years ago, 15 years ago will not fix the problems of today.
The last book you wrote, when you came here to talk about it, you said, thanks to the book, you were able to pay off your student debt.
That's right.
What are you going to do with this book?
About half of it will go to the IRS, and the others, we've got 4 kids, so they want to go to college one day.
All right. It's called American Dreams, Restoring Economic Opportunity for Everybody. Senator, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Buy it so the Rubio kids can go to Notre Dame.